What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Cervantes podcast. Joining me today to discuss her exceptional career in television, producing, representation, and her new role at Amazon is senior creative producer at Prime Video and Amazon Studios, Janeita Bellamy. How are you doing today, Janeita?
Hi, Cervantes. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Growing up, did you always know you wanted to pursue a career in television?
Now, the honest answer is growing up, I wanted to be a pediatrician from like when I was 6 or 7 up until I took physics in high school.
Wow. Okay.
And my mother, she really nurtured it. So like she bought the microscope set. She would really encourage all the biology and the weird little experiments I wanted to do. And then in high school, I took physics and I also started dabbling in our drama club a bit. And it opened a passion for me that I did not know existed.
Wow. So theater, doing
Yeah.
theater, and that was
Yeah.
in high school.
Yep.
Was
Yep.
there a play in particular that inspired you, like, oh, like I wanna do this, or I want to work on this for a living?
I can't say that there was one play. I think it's just the environment of being in the theater, being involved in like the production aspect. That's what I later learned was the thing that I really, really loved about it. So being involved in like the creation of it and bringing it to life, whether it be making costumes or writing the play with my fellow classmates when I was in high school, or like designing the set, like everything about it, I loved.
Okay, it was
Mm,
fun, like the magic of production and like
yeah.
going from script to like seeing it on
Hmm.
stage. That's really cool. What because you came from such a different career, you had a different career trajectory. Was it how was that conversation with your parents? Like, oh, I actually want to do this, not this.
Oh, um, I don't remember there ever being a conversation. Like, I mean, it wasn't like the way TV depicts it, where like I came home and I was like, Mom, I'm actually wanted. It wasn't anything like that as much as when I went to when I decided like when I knew I was going to college, um, I told my mother I wanted to major in theater. And my mother was like, "What?" She did not, she was not supportive. And I understand why. Like looking back on it, it's like we'll get into that. But
Right, right.
she wasn't super supportive initially. And because of that, I was like, well, I'll do broadcast journalism because at least it still gets me in that production space that I like. And yeah, I started at broadcast journalism, realized that wasn't necessarily the path for me, and stumbled, like literally fell into TV video from way of a fellow classmate, Leah Katz, Leah Jackson now. But yeah.
Wow. And is she a producer as well?
She does still work in the industry. She's more in the finance side of it.
Okay.
But she literally, I remember complaining to her when we were both like sophomores in undergrad. And I was like, I hate broadcast. I don't know what I'm going to do. And, at that age, everything is important. So she was like,
Right.
she said, why don't you check out my major? Just based on like how she was getting to know me and the things that I had said I liked. And she was a TV video major at the time. And I signed up for a few courses and loved it. Like literally, I was like, this is it. This is what I was looking for.
That's awesome. And were you involved in like different Heat Network shows and different clubs on campus?
Let's see. I was homecoming queen. So that would imply,
That's amazing. Okay.
thank you, yeah, class of 2008. That would imply that I was involved in a lot while I was at Hofstra. I was an RA when I was an undergrad.
Okay.
Every summer up until my senior year of college, I was an orientation leader and went on to be a head
Oh,
orientation leader. I was involved in the Hofstra Gospel Ensemble. Um, as far as the programs within the School of Communications, I would volunteer for things like Thursday Night Live. If you all still have it, yeah,
yes. Hmm.
yeah. So I participated in like Thursday Night Live. I was on the board for Lambda Pi Epsilon. I believe that's the name of the School of Com, like Honor Society.
Honor Society. Okay.
Yeah, so I was a secretary for that, and it was a lot of stuff. There were a lot. The more and more I think about it, the more and more I'm like, oh yeah, I did. I helped bring the NAACP to Hofstra, the
Oh, I didn't
NABJ
know
from when I
that.
was, yeah, and National Association of Black Journalists from when I knew I was going to be a journalist. So
Okay.
like, I worked with my classmates on and helping to get a lot of that stuff come to campus at the time.
That's really cool to hear because I think it's important to. I think sometimes when I was at Hofstra, it was the school of comm kids, and then there were school comm kids who did other things. And I
Hmm.
think it's important to do both so that you have an
Yeah.
appreciation for the production you're learning, but also, okay, what is life outside of my future career? You know,
Yeah.
because it makes you appreciate both sides, I
Hmm.
think.
Oh no, definitely. Absolutely. I feel like it makes you a more well-rounded individual. So when you graduate, you might not initially land that job you wanted. You're going to graduate thinking you're going to hit the ground running and being the producer extraordinaire you were in undergrad. And unfortunately, life doesn't always happen that way. And if your whole community and everything is driven by like this one thing, when that one thing is taken away, you'll find yourself kind of lost, so to speak.
Right, right. I've had conversations like that on the podcast. Nick Proto, he's a fellow Hofstra alum, and he works at Marvel now, and he spoke about like it was important for him to have a hobby outside of work and create animation and not be paid for it, and
Hmm.
having that work-life balance. So I definitely understand what
Yeah.
you're saying with that. Who were some people in in the entertainment industry that you looked up to, whether it was people in front of the camera or people behind?
Well, I'm a Black woman. So, like, immediately the first person that comes to mind is like Debbie Allen. And then
Yes,
going more contemporary, there's Issa Rae and Shonda
yes.
Rhimes. Like, if they're listening to this podcast, I would love to work for any one of you females.
Me too. Me
So,
too.
like Shonda Rhimes, I was I was getting into the industry. Like I think I was graduating college or just about to graduate when things like Grey's Anatomy were taking off and How to Get Away with Murder and then Scandal, of course. And I just loved everything about the way it felt like it. I feel like it transformed the industry. Like Shonda Rhimes transformed the industry in a sense of like more accepting of the colorblind casting and not everything having to look one way or the other, and being able to see that diversity reflected in television and it be intentional and it be supported and embraced really changed a lot for me when it came down to like looking at and being inspired in television. But on a more personal note, I worked at BET for a really long time. So I worked with some of the who's who of who for entertainment. I don't want to just say Black entertainment because we both know it's bigger than that, but
Right.
like Scott Mills, for example, the CEO of BET, is great. He was very inspirational for me in my career and giving just advice and like little things that you might not even think are important or you might not realize are important, like nurturing your relationships, whether they be you and I meeting in Professor Kumar's class or my friend Rob, who I was in undergrad with, and he and I worked together at BET for up until I left. So
Wow.
like
Okay.
Scott Mills and Connie Orlando, who is the head of music programs at BET, she's the executive producer behind all of the award shows.
Right.
And it was very it was very helpful for me in my career to see those people, the people you read about in the magazines and you read about in the trades, and see how they work firsthand. Like it's not something you have to guess about and just think like, oh yeah, I think I know how they do it. Vicky Free, who's the head of marketing at Adidas. Like it's just great to know that I know who these people are and I've worked under them and I've seen their work ethic and how they've risen to be who they are now.
That's so important. Like being able to learn from your colleagues, have mentorship, foster mentorship, and not like stop talking to them when you leave. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
still talk to them after you go this way and that person goes another way. I love that.
Exactly.
That's so important. That's so
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
I was just gonna say back to what you said about Shonda Rhimes changing the face of television, and she's
Mm-hmm.
still doing it with Bridgerton.
Yes.
You know, it was
Yes.
quiet for a while. I was like, oh, I wonder what Miss Rhymes is doing. And
Yeah.
now Bridgerton
Yeah.
is like the biggest thing next to Stranger Things and Wednesday on Netflix. So it's really cool to see, and it's refreshing to see people that look like us on television. Because I think I always talk about like in the '90s and early 2000s, it was like a boom. It was like we
Mm-hmm.
were everywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
then I don't know what happened. Like in the
I,
mid 2010s, it was just
yeah.
reality TV.
Yeah. It
So
just
it's nice to
stopped out of
see.
nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice to see Issa Rae, Black Panther, All-American, like different shows where it's a
Mm-hmm.
predominantly black cast, and we
Yes.
do sell overseas, you know.
Yes.
So it's nice
Yes.
to see that. It's nice to see
Yes.
that.
Yes. It's really it's amazing to see because I grew up with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Martin, and Living Single, and Family Matters, and TGIF, and Hanging with Mr. Cooper. So I remember growing up with seeing a lot of black TV for me at the time. Like if you look at the landscape of the shows, like it was a really the Cosby Show. How could I forget that? A Different World. But when you
Right.
look at those shows and like the time period it happened through, you don't realize that there was, I didn't pay attention to it. I didn't care about it. There were so many competing shows that just were not on my radar because seeing us was important for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Seeing someone
Yeah.
that looks like you is, I think it's crucial. I think it's crucial
Mm-hmm.
to your development. It's not the only thing, but that builds up your self-esteem. But I think it's one of the things, like a black woman being able to see herself as a love interest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yes.
that's big. That's big.
Or
And I think,
just people existing, like just existing on television.
and it not having to do with social justice.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You know, I think
Yeah.
that's interesting because I think in recent years we'll have like sitcoms and certain stuff, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's about, you know, being woke and social
Mm-hmm.
justice.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think that's why Insecure was so big, because we didn't see any of that. I think there was moments, but we
Yeah.
never. We're just black people living, just
Yeah.
like
Because
the other
it's
stuff.
it's important. It's important that we see ourselves in multifaceted ways because there's not just one way to be black, to be quite honest.
Right.
So like growing up, you see like you saw all the mishaps in the Martin, for example, he's a radio DJ. I'm not too sure that too many people, like, of course, we know of radio DJs, but to see the work that goes into being a radio DJ, what it is to be behind the scenes for this stuff, you don't know who that might have inspired. Just simply go into radio, beyond the comedy, beyond the Martin of it all, but going into radio. Living Single, Khadijah opened a magazine. Like she was an entrepreneur, and you saw the hustle, and you saw a lot of the high highs and the low lows of what that entails. So it was beyond
Right.
just like, oh, she's an actress, she's a pretty this, she's a pretty that. Like these people had everyday careers, so to speak, and you got to see how life was, and then you learn that that's how life is.
Right. We're normal people too.
Uh-huh.
It's not just athletics and like
Exactly.
football and basketball,
Mm-hmm.
for sure, for sure. And like you mentioned, you worked at BET for 10 years, first starting out as an on-air promotions coordinator in 2011, working your way up to senior production manager and leaving in 2021. What was that experience like? And obviously you do keep in touch with your former colleagues, but what was that experience like for you?
Um, Working at BET was everything. It was very helpful and instrumental because that was being at BET is where I was able to really develop or get into my career in the production space. Prior to joining BET, my first role out of college, I was at NBC and I was a commercial scheduler. And while I was thankful to have a job, it was very outside of anything I thought that I would be doing. Because I was going to graduate from Hofstra, I was going to be a producer. I was going to be on the field. I was going to be, and instead I was behind the desk typing in codes. And that job led to me getting a full-time job doing the same thing for VH1.
Wow.
Yeah, for
Wow.
VH1. And some like the mindset is like, oh, if you, a lot of people say the mindset now is like, oh, if the vibes are off, I'm out.
Right.
This was, I I was not blessed enough to be able to make those decisions where if I didn't like this job, I'm just going to leave because I had bills and things, I had responsibilities that I had to pay for. So from NBC, I went to VH1. I had a staff job, I had health insurance, all the stuff that they tell us to get when we're young. And you're just like, oh, okay, check, 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 check. But I wasn't fulfilled. And a mentor of mine, Tracy Doyle, had reached out that BET had an opening for an on-air planner, and it was different from scheduling commercials. It was scheduling promos, but I didn't like that either. I took the
Okay.
job because I wanted to do something different. And I felt like, at least with promos, now I have to know the content more. I have to know the audience. There's a little bit more thought into it instead of the math that's required for commercial scheduling. And I took the job at BET, and that was in that department, brand creative, it was called creative services at the time, was my first opportunity in the working world, seeing a direct path to production. I hadn't seen it before. Of course, I'm working at it's called Viacom at the time. So I'm in 1515, and you see the producers, you see the people who are working on these shows, but how to get there, I never was able to see clearly. And I was in a
Right.
fully different department that had nothing to do with production.
Right.
And thankfully, when I joined BET and did my job well and expressed interest in wanting to grow in production, they welcomed it and they supported it and they nurtured it. And thank God Hofstra's education helped me to know like how to navigate being on set and things like that. So working at BET was amazing. It was definitely esteem building. It was confidence building. It was great for me in my 20s and early 30s to be working at BET because it helped me to really figure out who I am and how I show up in the world. And the reality is we live in a country where race still matters. And I'm 6'2", and how I show up can have an opinion on whether or not I get something. Whereas at BET, at least that layer there, I never had to really think about. So when it wasn't an issue. And when things were happening in society, we were able to bring it to work and talk about it and have open conversations. And it wasn't something where you're sitting at your desk bottling up your tears because someone else was brutalized. Something else happened to the Black community. Like you're able to express it and have an honest conversation about how you feel, and it's supported and it's welcomed. And also BET is doing a lot for the community and has been. Like prior to me coming there, of course, like people had opinions on BET. I was one of those people. But when I got there and I saw that, oh, it's Black people all up and through here. They're the ones making the decisions. It's not what social media tries to make it out to be. They're all about uplifting and encouraging our people and supporting our people in any way, shape, or form. So it's definitely been impactful for me to have worked at BET for as long as I did. Yeah, for sure.
That's important to hear because oftentimes we see content made about us, made by people. So it's nice to see that was, Black people in front of the camera and the like award shows and the amazing content. But then also, oh, there's people of color, Black people behind the scenes as well. That's important.
Yeah.
Because in another network, you may have to bottle up your microaggressions, like you said.
And it was just like, just learning the role and the responsibilities of my role as like a producer, because I worked in brand creative is essentially promotional marketing of the network and its priorities. So when we had productions and stuff, I was able to voice and express like, hey, let's make sure we have a diverse set. And it wasn't something people were like shying away from. It wasn't something where you had to it wasn't an uphill battle of trying to get people to accept or embrace diversity in a very true and authentic way. I remember one time we had a shoot and there was a young man, he was our server at the restaurant we were eating. And when we went to pay for our food, because we had flown down for a shoot, he saw our card and he was like, oh my God, you work at BET? And we were like, yeah. Like, we're not celebrities. We were like, yeah, what's up? And he told us how he had just graduated and he's trying to get in the industry. Now, we were in Atlanta. I was based in New York at the time. And for me, I was like, well, I said, so you say you graduated, right? And he said, yeah, he's showing me his company. He's showing me his card and everything. And he said, I'm just working here so I can make money and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, are you free this weekend? And he was like, I can be. And I reached out to the production company we hired and asked if there would be space to bring him on as a PA. Because all it takes is someone giving you a chance. And I knew for me, his chance would be needed better in Atlanta than me going back home to New York and reaching out to him to find out like, hey, how's it going? I'm down there in Atlanta for a shoot. You want to get in the industry? Anyone can be a PA. Everyone can be a PA.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of
very broad.
Yeah, it's very broad. So get connected with this Atlanta-based production company who will likely hire you for future projects. Like, yeah, it's cool to know me, but it's even cooler to know the people who can really keep you in the door. And it was opportunities like that that I know, because of me owning my role and like being very secure and comfortable in who I was and what I brought to the table and how I worked as a producer, that I was able to say things like that and do things like that and hopefully be impactful for other people in the way that people were impactful for me.
Paying it forward. My parents always talk
Exactly.
about that. Always talk, yeah, and it's
Exactly.
like not like you said, you're comfortable with who you are, so you're not going to gatekeep.
Hmm.
So that's
Who am I to
important.
gatekeep? Who am I to gatekeep? Like,
Right.
it doesn't serve me or benefit me to block anyone else's blessing. And there's
Right.
nothing that I could do to stop that in the first place. So I'd rather hold the gate wide open and say, come in, come in, come in, come in, come in,
Right.
and you make it work for you. And if you stumble and fall and you need help, then yeah, you reach out to those who you feel can help you. But I wouldn't be someone, I don't feel like I've ever been someone who's, no, you're not good enough. Because we all have things that we're trying to overcome and we're trying to like battle and deal with in the world.
Right. And it's so important that like us again, speaking about our community, that we
Mm-hmm.
do that for each other because we see other communities do that.
Mm-hmm.
We see
Mm-hmm.
other communities help each other out, or even just like, oh, my dad or my sister helped me.
Uh-huh.
So it's
Yep.
important that we do. I think I think nepotism can be challenging sometimes, but I
Yeah.
think also it's like I think sometimes it's okay to use it for our advantage because again, we see other people do it in other communities, so why can't we do
I'm
it?
conflicted about nepotism because I do feel like if I was born in a family that allotted me an opportunity that I did not have to break my back over to get, why shouldn't I be able to have it? And I feel like the issue is when you put people in responsibilities or give people positions that they're just not qualified and or ready for at that time. So the young man that I had met at the restaurant, no, I did not tell him like, hey, you want to be our key grip on our shoot? Like that would have been
Right,
ridiculous. Hey, you want to
right,
be our camera operator? Now that's where the issue with nepotism comes in, where you place people in positions that they are not qualified for, and then they act in a way that they know everything, and it's like, but you know nothing. So is it
right,
nepotism? Well, it's not because me and that man don't know each other from a hole in the wall. But helping people out because you can is something you should do. That's just how
right,
I feel. That's just how I
right,
feel. And when it comes to nepotism, I only have issues in it when you're putting people in positions that they are not ready for, they're not qualified for, and you're choosing them over people who are qualified for them simply
right,
because you like them or because they're cool people or they're your brother or your cousin or your auntie. And it's like, help them out another way.
right. That doesn't stumble someone else
Exactly.
who
Exactly.
deserves that position. I completely
Exactly.
agree. I completely agree. You also worked at Netflix as a production executive from October 2021 to this past summer,
Mm-hmm.
working on projects such as Netflix Junior Magazine, Stranger Things Season 1 Watch Party on TikTok, Netflix Dreams Episode 4, The Witcher, and so on. What did you learn from that experience, and what was some of your favorite projects?
Netflix was a different experience entirely
Okay.
because I joined Netflix in October of 2021. So we were still, I mean, we're still in the pandemic now, but we were still in the earlier stages of the pandemic. So I joined a company fully remote, and
Okay.
being at BET and having to go remote due to everything that was going on in 2020 was different because I'd already known most of my coworkers. We've already had a rapport. We've hung out on different occasions. We've worked together. So there was already that built-in trust when you go into this virtual world where you can't really tell how somebody means something or you're picking up on things that you normally wouldn't pick up on. And that was a challenge for me at Netflix because I was like, oh, okay, all right. We have to put our camera on for this meeting. I wasn't always putting my camera on for meetings when I was at my prior company. And just the way in which they worked was differently. It was a very different onboarding process. It was different entirely also because it was tech. So I
Okay.
enjoyed what I did there. I think the thing that the thing that I would say I was most excited about working on there was just being there and figuring out what it was to work at Netflix. There was always this curiosity for me and growing and coming up in this industry and seeing that Netflix being the creme de la creme and the top dog. And I joined Netflix at a very unique time where they were trying to figure things out, where there was more competition than ever before, almost kind of like BET, when at one point there was nothing really, there were only select time slots and days and networks for Black people. And then you have this one network where it's 24/7 and it had a lot of attention, and then everybody else hopped on the bandwagon. So with Netflix, it was just a really unique time to be there. That
Right.
I've learned a lot from it. One of the projects I worked on that I'm really excited about that had just came out was we had done a room makeover for a young girl for Karma's World. A little girl,
Okay.
unbeknownst to us, her mother was actually a songwriter, producer. So her daughter recorded a little song to go with it. And she had a complete
Wow.
room makeover because the difference in my role from from BET to Netflix was when I was at BET, I was on linear marketing. So I was marketing of the actual shows and when they're coming on and what you're going to see and stuff like that. And then for Netflix, I was on social. I was in the social media department essentially,
Okay.
where they're just trying to keep the conversation going. So I was working across several verticals, whether it be like Netflix Geek
Okay.
or Con
Yeah.
Todo or
Yes.
most. So I was working across those sort of platforms, Netflix Film, and producing the content that was coming out of that, working with the creative team and producing that content. So it was just a really different work style and working experience because the projects were so fast and furious, and
Okay.
they really were. Like, social media doesn't stop for anyone.
We
So the
see that. And
projects
our
were,
people's attention spans. I just spoke about that. It's very short. It's very
yeah,
short.
yeah. So it was a lot of learning there, and I appreciate it. I almost had to relocate to LA, which was also going to be like, it was a lot of, beyond
Wow.
the professional side, it was a lot of personal that I was coming into. And honestly, like, I'm not ashamed of it. It was also the first time that I'd experienced a layoff in my career
Okay.
from 2008 up until June or August of this June of this year. I'd never experienced a layoff. And
Um,
that was something to also battle and grapple with, and not a performance related layoff, not a personal or professional performance against me, as much as like, hey, the company has to make decisions, and part of the decisions are we're eliminating your department, we're eliminating your group, and just dealing with that and figuring out how to persevere through that and what your life looks like when you're experiencing a layoff, especially a layoff in the middle of hearing that other companies are going to be doing the same, or a lot of people are hitting the job market. And thankfully, I never let that bother me. I just figured, all right, I got to figure out what's next.
what, thank you for being transparent about that. I really appreciate that. What motivated you to, okay, it's not about, because you said it wasn't performance related, was nothing personal against you, work drama or anything of that. What motivated you to keep going and land where you are now at Amazon?
Um, the thing that motivated me was knowing that it wasn't me. Like, it would be different if it was, Janeita, you just don't fit the company and you're not working out. Cause I think then I'd really have to do some like personal, like reflection and figure out like, well, what happened? How was I doing so well at BET for so long and I come to Netflix and I don't last? So I think it was just maturity and knowing that this happens in the industry, and that I'm not as safe, or I won't be as spared as I thought I might have been. And it happens to everyone. It happens to people at the highest levels and people at the lowest levels. And one piece of advice that stuck out to me from when I was at BET from my former VP in the department I worked at, Raquel, she had talked to us one time about layoffs. Like, it was just a random conversation. And this was like early in my career there. And she was like, if you get laid off, you'll get another job. Now, and at 22, 23, you hear layoff and you're like, no, oh my God, your life is over. And
Right.
she's like, it'll hurt, it'll sting a little bit, but you'll brush your shoulders off and you'll get another job. And for me, that's literally how I felt about it. Cause I was like, I know what I bring to the table. I was at Netflix. So like, I know that's not a small feat. I've had a strong and long tenure at BET. And that's not something that people are upset about. So it didn't work out in that arena, but that just means it wasn't my time. It wasn't time for me to be there, or my time there was spent according to how God wanted me to be there. I was only supposed to be there the amount of time that I was there, for me to
Right.
learn other things and develop and grow in other ways. And I feel like I grew more personally while working there because I had to navigate how to show up at work when it's a completely virtual setting for you and you don't know anyone. And not only do you not know anyone, the medium and the form in which you're working is very different anyway.
And we're in a
Because
global pandemic. And
yeah,
this is our first.
yeah, like
You
it's
know?
first on top of first on top of first on top of first. And when it happened, I was more so like, all right, okay. I sat with myself. I was like, I need to figure out what I want to do. I had to think about what I wanted my career to look like. Did I want to keep climbing in that direction? Or did I want to try something else? And I'm glad that I was afforded the opportunity to be able to do that. And then God knocked and said, hey, hold on 1 second. Not resting that long.
Well, I'm not done with you yet. 'Cause now you're on your fifth major network that you're working with. So look at that. Like that's pretty amazing.
You said fifth, and I was like, no. And I was like, oh, wait, yes, it is. Wow.
That's pretty amazing, to work at
Thank
a
you.
global company that everyone knows. And my thing is, yeah, like why wouldn't you get another job? Because in my mind, television is there's so many productions going on. So like, okay, if it's not Disney, then it's this. Or if it's not
Mm-hmm.
CNN, then it's this. Like there's so much work, I think, to go around.
Mm-hmm.
So it would only make sense for you to end up killing it somewhere else, you
But
know?
that only happens when you operate from an abundance mindset. So, like,
Right.
for you to even say, if it's not Disney, then it's this. And if it's not this, then it's that. Like, you have to remember that there's enough of the pie for everyone to eat. And all right, this slice might not be for you, but that doesn't mean this next one isn't. That doesn't mean there's an even bigger slice down the line. So, when you operate from that abundance mindset, and for me, it wasn't a woe is me. I knew it wasn't personal. I knew it wasn't Janeita was the problem as much as, hey, this is an issue that we're having at the company. We're making changes for the company. And these changes unfortunately leave you outside of it. And you
Right.
have to be mature enough to know that it happens. It happens working in corporate America, whether it be television or Wall Street banking. It happens.
Right. I think right now, I think Disney reported that they lost a bunch of money this past year and they're on a hiring freeze,
Mm-hmm.
and it's at first it's like, oh my God, but I'm trying to be at Good Morning America. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, Cervantes, wait, there's other stuff. Let me not just hold out on this company. There's plenty of other companies, and I can
Mm-hmm.
always do freelance gigs in between, which I'm currently doing. So I
That's
think,
great.
and I think also too, I would like to think it's kind of like the different profession, but I like to think it's like healthcare. There's always
Mm-hmm.
going to be doctors. There's always going to be nurses. So people in my position who are trying to be a doctor, I would think there's always work for them because there's always
Mm-hmm.
emergencies and things going on. People are always going to watch TV. People are
Mm-hmm.
always going to watch daytime, late night film, documentary. There's always going to be some type of production. So I would think we would never be out of jobs, because
Mm-hmm.
TV
Mm-hmm.
will always, I would think, will always go on.
Yeah.
So I like to have that
Yeah.
mindset.
And I mean, if you think about it, when the pandemic first hit and we all had to go to this virtual space, look at some of the things that birthed out of it. The fact that people are now able to have interviews with you no matter where you are. Like, oh, okay, can
Zoom.
we exactly Zoom,
I
which
never
we've
heard of
had.
Zoom prior to 2020.
Me neither. I didn't know what a Zoom was. We had some virtual meetings, but to be able to see that we can truly function almost entirely virtually says a lot. The shows that came out of it, Versus came out of it. So like
Yes, yes.
stuff happens, and as mediums change, as industries change and evolve, you just have to grow and change and evolve and welcome those changes in order to keep things happening for you.
Right. Because even before the pandemic, there were unforeseen circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
that people had to pivot,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's someone getting sick or a show
Yep.
getting canceled due to low ratings or the
Yep.
talent not wanting to continue. So there's always unforeseen circumstances for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said, you are now the senior creative producer at Prime Video and Amazon Studios. How is that going, and what does your job there entail?
Honestly, I love it.
Okay.
It's a very interesting role. It's a very interesting company to be a part of. I sit with the global creative production department, And I'm still learning right now. I'm still very much so learning what my role entails, how my role shows up on set. I'll be working mostly or specifically with the social media behind the titles. So
Okay.
the social media campaigns that come out for titles like, for example, Riches, which I was shadowing someone on, or
Okay.
The Legends of Vox Machina season 2, which is coming out in January. So if
Okay.
you're on when you're on the different platforms and you see little videos or little bites or little quips, statics and things, me and my team and people I've worked with work to get that stuff out in the world for everybody to see. So I'm
That's
still
awesome.
learning. This is different because there will be more travel involved with the role. So I'm excited about that. And I'm just excited to keep learning in this space and working with people that are really kind and friendly and growing even more, because who knows, the sky's the limit at this point. But right now, I'm very happy in this space that I'm at in my career.
That's really happy to hear because you've done so many successful things and progress. So I would only hope we would all want to hope that you're continuing to do that and work with people that are kind. Because I've always been told like, oh, be careful, and I'm like, why? It's like your industry is there's some mean people, and I'm like, I don't think so. Because what goes around comes around. So if they're mean, they're not
Uh-huh.
gonna last long, right? But I've seen I haven't seen that much so far.
Uh-huh.
Things have been pretty good, but so it's nice to hear that even at a major studio, like people are so respectful.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you there have been times that I've worked with people from 9 a.m. until about 5 in the morning, working on stuff, working on a project, working on getting some stuff submitted in time and things like that. And the core of it is like, these are people you're spending that much time with. You should get to know them. And if you don't gel with them, I can understand in that sense where like the vibe is off. You can't stay at a place where you're not embraced and welcomed and it's hard to get along with everyone. But no, I mean, just given what given what working in the production aspect or working in television entails, it's so much of a group project that you wouldn't last if you had an individual mindset. And even if you were a
No,
mean person, you'd have to swallow that a bit because you have to work with so many people to make something happen. You would not believe the amount of people it takes just to get a 30-second commercial done.
people
And
don't
that's not,
understand that.
yeah. So
People don't
like
know
it's
that.
so much of a team effort that, yeah, you might run into some bad apples, you might run into some crabby people, but at the end of the day, most of the people are kind because you spend that much time with these people.
They become family.
Like literally, literally,
Like,
they become family. My friend Rob, who I mentioned earlier, my friend Pam, both fellow Hofstra alums. We graduate
wow.
same
Okay.
graduating class, and so we graduated class of 2008 in May. I landed the job at VH1.
Right. Like you said,
I
that's
landed
awesome.
a year later. I was at VH1. This was after my time with NBC, and Pam was at True TV, and her contract was winding up. Now I was at VH1, and I was like, "Hey Pam, they have openings here. You might not like it." I was like, "I don't like it, but it's a foot in the door." And she was like, "Really?" And I said, "It's definitely not what we went to undergrad for." Pam ends up working
Right.
at VH1. We worked with a team at VH1 that was so great that it almost you forget how much you don't like the job because the people were so good. And you can't work like I said, layoffs are part of the industry. It's part of working.
Right.
So
It's not just us. Yeah.
exactly. So like I had worked at Viacom essentially from 2009 until 2021, and there were several layoffs. And in that entire time, thank God I was never impacted. I never lost my job. But with the VH1 role, when certain people were laid off, Pam and I both were like, well, we didn't really like doing this. And that's what got us to wake up and move elsewhere. Pam went to Nickelodeon. I went to BET. While I was
Okay.
at BET, my friend Rob, his contract was ending with HBO. And I was like, they have openings here, Rob, but it's for promo scheduling. It's not production. It's really different. Be more consistent. And he was like, and I said, send me your resume. I'll send it along. I sent his resume along. He got the job. He and I were literally working side by side. This is my
Wow.
best friend from college. And some years passed. Pam was looking for something after Epics and after Nickelodeon. Pam ends up joining our team at BET. And the three of us were literally like three amigos.
I love that.
And like that just goes to show how important it is to navigate and nurture and cultivate a network, a great network of great people who will be there to support you through some difficult times, some not nice coworkers, some weird moments. And having them by my side is also why my career has taken off in the way it has and has developed in the way it has, because I had the confidence of working with my two best friends from college and making it work and
All
like
these years
having their
later.
support. Yeah, all these years later, having their support and us being able to navigate this industry together and also support each other when needed.
Because it can be lonely at
It can
times,
be, yes, yes.
you
So
know.
working with your college best friends, I would not trade that ever, 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 ever. I would do the same. I would do everything that I had to do in my career thus far to be able to experience those opportunities again.
I heard that exact same thing when I was at Hofstra. Like, look around. These people you're gonna work with again at some point. The industry is not
Mm-hmm.
that big. And I was like, oh wow, like okay. And
Yeah.
it's happened. I bumped into a fellow Heat Network member while at NBC, and I was like, oh my God, Hofstra.
Yeah.
So it was so cool to
Listen,
see.
and it's the truth. It is the truth. You will work with your the people in your undergrad, your community, like it will continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. And half the time you're working with a lot of the same people because you're bouncing from production to production to production together. You getting
You
good with
know,
a team on a project, when that production manager or that line producer has to crew up. Oh yeah, let's call Cervantes. He was great on this last project. Oh, we're gonna call Janeita. She was great on that project. And you and I could have worked together on 10, 15, 20 projects because we just work so well together. So
right?
that's
And
why,
recycle the same
mhm,
people that they
yeah,
know and who are good at what they do.
exactly, exactly,
That's what it is.
exactly that.
What do you love most about being a producer? And maybe what are some things that people wouldn't know that it entails?
Um, I guess one of the things I could say people don't know that wouldn't know that it entails is that it can almost be a 24-hour job if you let it. Producing is really about keeping everything afloat, managing all the spinning plates and making sure that if one plate is falling, you're focusing on that while keeping the other ones in the air.
Right,
So
right.
like it's a lot of juggling, and it's not for the faint of heart. I won't say it's a hard job. It involves a different type of communicating, it involves a different type of thinking. And it does take like a special person to do it because you're sacrificing a lot. You're sacrificing hours, like literal hours, working on stuff that sometimes people won't even know you're behind it, especially if you're on a commercial. It's not like you see commercials and then they have credits at the end of them when they play.
Right.
So
That's
like
true.
it can seem thankless, but if you love what it is, if you love the idea of bringing something to life, you'll love it. And
Right.
so I went to what do you, I forgot the beginning of the
Oh,
question.
what do you love most about it?
What do I love? I love everything about it. I feel like while I wanted to be a pediatrician when I was a kid, I feel like I was actually born to be a producer. I'm a natural
Okay.
problem solver. I'm a natural like planner. I don't plan my personal life that much, but I'm a natural planner. Within my group of friends, I was the one who was always organizing our big group friend trips that everyone was going on.
Okay.
I was
The mom
organized.
friend, if you will.
Exact. Basically, I'm the oldest of my siblings. I'm the
Okay.
oldest of my cousins. So like I do feel like I was naturally born to produce because I feel like I'm a natural leader. And it has been like times where I've had to adjust my style because like you said, the mom friend, sometimes you can come across too controlling or too demanding of your friends. And it's like, hold up, we're you're not my child.
Right.
I'm not your mother. And having to adjust and having to grow and having to like just figure out what people need from you in those moments. Because when you're someone who's always trying to solve a problem, when a problem comes to you, and your mind, for me, you automatically go to, what can I do to help this? How can I fix this? How can I help you? And sometimes you just need to sit back and step back. But I love producing. I love everything about it. My favorite part is being on set and seeing all the work we put in and all the money that's being spent actually come to life, and seeing the project and the actors recite the lines or recite the words that the creator or the creative director came up with. I love that stuff.
And
If
having
I could be on,
creative control.
yes, yes, I love it, love it, love it. If I could be on set every single day, I would do it in a heartbeat.
I love that, and it's nice because you have my dream role. Like I for those watching who didn't know, I really want to be an executive producer or showrunner of my own talk show. Like sort of like a male version of The Real or like
Okay.
The View.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes I feel like we don't really have a lot of male talk shows
Mm-mm.
where it's a panel, and if we
Yeah.
do, it's usually ESPN. And I think it'd be really cool to see like five guys of color talking about everyday things, not just sports and politics and news. So I really want to be like an executive producer one day. So it's nice to hear like someone on the podcast who has the same industry as me, and hopefully I can emulate a career path similar to and reach that point, because it's not just you graduate and then become a producer like you said.
Listen, I thought that's what I thought it was. And that's amazing to hear that you actually want to be a talk show host, because funny enough, I forget where I'm quoted saying it, but like one of my goals in life was and may still be to be the next Oprah. I love
Wow.
I love interviewing people. And my career has taken me in a different trajectory, but I also have at one point wanted to be a talk show host because I find people fascinating, and hearing other people's stories interests me. And you're great. You've conducted a
Thank
great
you.
interview and you've led it well. And I mean, honestly, I would keep my options open. That's the
Right.
one piece of advice that I give anybody trying to start out in this career. You might think you want to be one thing, but this industry is so wide and massive that you might find something and absolutely love it.
Right.
I might have, who knows, I might have actually loved commercial scheduling when I got into it and was like, oh, wait, no, I can do this and I can do, because there's a lot that goes into commercial scheduling. It just wasn't for me.
Right.
So I tell younger people, I tell like family even who want to get into this industry, don't turn your nose up at the role, or don't say no because you don't know what it is, or because it's not what you think you want, like it's not what you think you want to do. Because God has a way of correcting us and showing us the path we're supposed to be on. You can try your hardest and you eventually end up veering towards the path you were supposed to be on in the first place. Because there's no way that I can, looking back at my career, I could see how all the dots connected. I got the BET role, I got the production role at BET because of my commercial experience at NBC and VH1.
You got your dream role doing something that was nowhere near
Mm-hmm.
your dream. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
powerful. That's
So
powerful.
you got
And
to keep your, go ahead.
I was gonna say I can relate to that because in school I loved camera operating and that's all I did. But I
Mm-hmm.
wish that when I was signing up to crew, I wish I signed up to the other stuff. Like it felt safe doing camera operating because everyone, thought I was good at it, and I kept doing that one thing. But I kind of wish I shadowed the director and did graphics. So it's nice to see that the small gigs that I've done so far, they've been random, like
Mm-hmm.
building a soccer ball, interactive soccer ball for the World Cup in New York City, doing graphics in for NBC,
Mm-hmm.
working on a video game production company this past summer. So it's been very all over the place, which I like because
Yeah.
I kind of stifled myself a little bit in school. So it's nice to hear that like don't put all your eggs in one basket because you'll
Yeah.
never know what you may actually like or what you
Yeah.
maybe actually don't like. Hey, I thought I liked
Exactly.
graphics. Maybe I might rather do something else.
Mm-hmm. And that's the, like, knowing what you don't like is just as important as knowing what you do like. And people
Right.
tend to forget that. I knew graduating Hofstra, I did not like editing. So
Same here.
I knew that I was not going to look for any editing jobs. There was never going to be a point where Janeita was going to apply for a junior editor role. I just knew it. If a role said something about editing and it was really intense editing, like if it's editing email, that's different.
Right.
Like if you're telling me to be like Final Cut certified and all this stuff, that's not my thing. So it's important that you also know where you don't want to go in production. Do you want to do post-production? That's a whole other aspect of production that people don't even think of. So
Right.
knowing what you don't like is just as important as knowing what you do like.
And keeping that balance of, because I am so early in my career, keeping that balance of, okay, I don't really like doing this, but let me keep my options open because
Yeah,
I'm not in the opportunity to lift my nose up and I don't want to do that. Let me
yeah.
see what sticks.
And again, you never know what it's going to reveal because it might be the thing that you end up loving.
In your Instagram bio, you have a Bible verse that reads, God is within her, she will not fail. Psalm chapter 46, verse 5. Does your faith in that particular Bible verse keep you motivated in your career?
That particular Bible verse is right here.
Okay, I love that.
So
I love that. So you see it all the time.
I see it all the time. I was raised a Christian. I grew up in the Church of God in Christ, and I would say I'm more spiritual now, but yes, it definitely does keep me grounded. It helps me, like, God is within her, she will not fail, which is why when she was laid off, she being me, I knew this wasn't the end. I knew that something greater was happening. And it is like my faith is very important to me. And it's also allowed me to, for me at least, embrace other people, embrace different faiths, and keep myself open to learning different cultures and different people and how they operate and how they see the world. That's the beauty and the benefit of working in television, because you work with so many different kinds of people. So while I'm a Christian and while I have that in my bio, I'm not shutting myself out from learning from anyone. It's just, this
Right.
is my faith and this is what gets me going and keeps me motivated.
That is so true. Like the crew, the talent may be all from America, but the crew oftentimes is
Mm-hmm.
international. I've seen that on a couple
Mm-hmm.
of gigs so far. Like, oh, she's from Mexico and
Yeah.
he's from Germany and I'm from Westchester County, New York. So we're all working on this together. So I definitely agree, and I think your faith that's what keeps me motivated during the
Yeah.
tough times, like you
Yeah.
mentioned.
Because I mean, the pandemic was scary. And for me, I needed something greater than me to know that things will be okay. Being laid off, I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, no, it was great. It was fine, blah, blah, blah. It was scary. Did I have a breakdown and cry and like lose it? No, but it was still a scary thing. However, being rooted in my Christianity and in my faith let me know that I will be okay. And maybe the Bible also says these weapons may form, but they will not prosper. So, like, this
Yeah,
is a weapon. This is hard. This is going to be hard, but you don't get a testimony without a test.
right. God gives his strongest battles to his strongest soldiers.
Uh huh.
And I'm a little tired of being a strong soldier,
Hello,
but
hello.
I've seen
God,
that
sign me
meme.
up. Put me on reserves, please.
But I totally agree because yeah, at first it was scary, but I was like, you know what, like they'll find a cure. This won't last because there's
Hmm.
no way they're gonna the TV's gonna stop and everything's gonna shut down and like
Uh huh.
there's no way. I'm still
Uh huh.
watching Jimmy Fallon and he's in the basement
Hmm.
still doing his
Yep.
show. So
Yep.
things don't stop. And I think you definitely I always say that you definitely have to have something outside of you to keep you going. It
Yeah.
can't just be the cool Instagram quotes. It can't just be the
No.
self-care. It has to be therapy, but definitely your faith.
Yes. And to be very clear, I'm a Christian who definitely will scream from the mountaintops the importance of therapy, because it's not,
Right.
this is not working in television. I can't speak to other industries because I don't work in other ones, but working in television is not for the faint of heart. It can be a rough industry. It can be hard. There will be ups, there will be downs. You'll work with people who are not kind. You'll work with people who you think have your best interests and actually are only looking out for themselves. And these are the trials and triumphs that you deal with working in this industry. And I'm pretty sure it's universal, but I'm speaking to television.
Right.
And for me, staying rooted in my faith and staying unwavering in my faith and not allowing these circumstances to change me is what has allowed me to continue to be blessed in my career. Not to like, it was God that landed me at Prime Video. And I know it was because I was in a space of like, I don't know what's next. Like, I did not want to have to go through the LinkedIn again and start looking for work and all that stuff. I was tired, to be honest. But God was like, all right, you could be tired, but here, I'm going to send this your way.
Right.
So I can't take credit for it. All I did was do the work. I did the work and then something showed up for me. Something
Because we
showed
can
up
make
that was,
plans
mm-hmm.
and they always say God laughs.
Mm-hmm.
Because we could
Mm-hmm.
be super organized and, in 5 years I want to do this, but who's to say you may do great things at Amazon, which I'm sure you will, and then at a certain point you may feel like, okay, I want to do something else. I want to go into film or I want to
Mm-hmm.
transition
Mm-hmm.
career paths. So we never know. We never know. And
And that's also why you have to keep yourself open. When you keep yourself open, you allow yourself to get those opportunities that are going to be scary. For me, working in the medium in which I'm working now is different. I'm not gonna say it's scary because I'm on Instagram. Like I use Facebook. I grew up with social media. So it's not a problem for me to use it. But my work experience was always with traditional television.
right,
So
coming from
even
network, and now
exactly.
you've done the last two have been streaming, and yeah.
Exactly. So like even that's a big adjustment. But you have to be open in order for those opportunities to even present themselves to you. So I kept myself open because I wanted greater opportunities. I wanted more experience. I wanted more opportunities to learn and grow and develop more. So I know it's not going to stop here. I know that the sky's the limit. I'm excited to see how my career continues to grow and evolve.
Right, because it's interesting. When I was at NBC, there was somebody I was working with, and he's 31, and he's been in news for the past since straight out of college. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing! Like I'm trying to get like you. And he said, well, actually, I'm kind of bored. I feel kind of stuck, and
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had more. I forgot the word he used. I wish he had more diversity in his career instead of doing the same thing for the past 10 years. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow, like that's so
Yeah.
interesting. Someone I'm looking at who I think has it all,
Mm-hmm.
but they're bored and they don't know what to do, what else to do. So I think
Yeah.
that's an interesting point where it's like, oh, like the grass isn't always greener, and it's okay to pivot
Yes,
when
it's
you feel
absolutely
like
okay.
your time is done.
And the grass is greener where you water it, which is why it's not greener on the other side.
I like that. I like
It
that.
is
Right.
greener where you water it. So like within my career, I was at I was with Viacom for 10 years and I was at VH1 and I was at BET. I was at Viacom for 12 years. I was at BET for 10 years. And within that 10-year span at BET, I had technically 3 or 4 different title changes, completely different job functions. So, like, yes, you have to keep yourself open so that you can allow yourself to be diverse and not get too bored in your career because I'm not always hopping on a plane. I'm not always going to set. Sometimes I'm sitting at a computer all day reading through scripts, responding to emails, setting up phone calls, doing math, stuff like that.
Right. It looks different.
Hmm.
So you have seasons,
Yeah, you
you
have
know.
seasons. Yeah. So you have to embrace all the seasons in order to like really embracing all the seasons and the changes that come with them allow you to cherish the really really good moments.
Right. And if it does become redundant, then you may
You
have
can
to look
change
at
it.
yourself and change,
Yeah,
you know.
like you can change it. That's the other thing that's beautiful about a career in television. You don't have to stay in one area forever. Like you get this experience, okay, I want to try something else. You might have to take a few steps back, but if you're open to that, who's to say where's it going to take where it will take you.
Right. Right. I think that's great advice for everyone listening like me, interested in television. I think that's such great advice. Do you feel, going back to our conversation about the Black Renaissance and representation, do you feel Black representation on screen is improving?
Oh, I mean, I'd be ignorant to say it's not. It absolutely is improving. It can always get better.
Right.
Representation, diverse representation across the diaspora can be better, which is why I was excited to work on the show Riches on Amazon because it showed UK Nigerian wealth.
Okay. I have to check
And
that show out, but
yes,
okay.
yes, it just started streaming a few weeks ago, but like I can't tell you the last time I've seen anything like that, if ever. And then the
Oh,
cast is mostly like dark skin or brown skin, full cast. Like that's
wow.
beautiful. African actors who I did not know, but they're incredible in their own right. They're accomplished in their own right. And being able to see a show like that was impactful for me. So yes, I'm not gonna lie and say no, it has not changed or whatever. It has. It can continue to improve. And it would be great if everybody got on board with that, if everybody had the abundance mindset and not operating from a space of lack, where if we start to expand and let Black people in, then where are we going to go? Well, there's still more work to be done. Like there's
There's
enough
room
for
for all of
everyone.
us.
There's room for all of us, literally. Literally,
Right.
there's room for all of us.
Right. That's so true. We're not taking any jobs. We're not taking too much space up.
No,
There's
no.
yeah, yeah.
And the more and more you open it up to other people, like if if the doors weren't open for like an Issa Rae or Shonda Rhimes, would we have Grey's Anatomy? Would we have
No.
had Insecure? Would we
No.
have Abbott Elementary? Like, come on.
Right.
Like
Right.
all
And we
these
see
go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, and we see how social media is changing the game too, because Quinta Brunson was someone who kind of, in a way, formed her own audience first
Mm-hmm.
without having to wait traditionally
Mm-hmm.
for a network and an agent and all this stuff. It's like, oh, I'm building my own fan base. Okay, I'm really successful at BuzzFeed and all this stuff. Now I'm gonna create my own show. And Disney was like, oh, we've seen your
Mm-hmm.
resume, you're killing it. Let me give you a chance.
Same
So it's
with
like we don't have
Issa.
to wait for other
Yeah.
people. Same with Issa Rae.
Same with Issa Rae. Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. I watched that on YouTube religiously. So when you
Yeah,
hear Issa Rae Insecure, oh, I'm definitely watching that. Now she got the
right.
money to do all the big stuff that she couldn't do with Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. Sign me up.
The
So
budget.
yeah. So like, yes, it's improving. It can always get better. It can always get better. I'm not gonna say it's not. It will never. I don't want to say never. I don't want to say never, but it can always improve. It can always be better. It can always be greater because people have stories to tell, and everyone's story is so unique and interesting in a different way. And if we
Right.
didn't have these barriers, these unnecessary, ignorant barriers, who knows what stories we're missing out on
Right. We
and
see
what
what
greatness.
happens
Yeah.
with Black Panther, Crazy Rich Asians,
Look at
you
that.
know?
Look at that. Like you give one opportunity and it explodes, which shows you there's a hunger for it and there's a thirst for it. And because of that, we need to allow for more and more and more of it. Feed those audiences, serve those audiences. It's
Right.
important to do so.
Right. Like it's not, I think Viola Davis said it's like it's not a lack of talent, it's a lack of opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And there's always an audience. There's always an audience for it. And we're very loyal. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
communities of color, we see ourselves like, oh, we're gonna go watch that movie, we're gonna dress up, you know, and go like Black people do that, Latino people do that, Asian people do that. So we're loyal. We just need that sitcom so that we can
Uh-huh.
support it. We need
Mm-hmm.
that sitcom made so we can support or movie or
But the
documentary.
thing that I
So
also would say I appreciate is the fact that people are also making their own way, making their own space. Look at your podcast. You want to be a talk show host, you're starting out the right way, in my opinion. I'm
thank
going to interview
you.
people. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to see if I'm going to hone my skills so that when the opportunity does present itself, you've gone through the ups and downs and the turmoil and the highs and lows of the Cervantes Wilson experience, that when you have your actual show, you'll have these moments to reflect on and think, oh no, I remember when I did such and such. I really like it that way. Or I didn't like when I said this word, or maybe I over prepared here, or maybe I need to do. You have all of this in your back pocket so that when that opportunity knocks and you have your show and you're getting ready to launch your show, you have all of this experience and learning from you putting in the
Right.
work and developing what you wanted. You
Prepare
felt like
like
you felt like there was a space lacking. There's nothing that speaks to Black men. Instead of just complaining about it, you say, I'm going to be the space. I'm going to speak to Black people.
I'm
I'm
gonna
going to,
create it.
uh-huh.
I'm gonna
And I
create it.
love that. I love that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think, yeah, like, but and I knowing how to book guests, creating topics,
Mm-hmm.
questions. Okay, in the beginning, I was very like, okay, question one, okay, question two, okay, question three, and then learning how to have a conversation and not worry if I don't get to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm making the point right now. So I think I really I agree with that. And I think I love social media can be toxic and bad, but it can also be very beneficial
Mm-hmm.
with creating your career. And again, not waiting for someone else to give you opportunity, to make
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity, and hopefully along the way they see it and they're like they co-sign.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Look
like
at
we see
Tyler
with ourselves.
Perry. Look at Tyler Perry. Like it's a prime example of, all right, I'm not going to keep knocking on y'all's doors to make my films. There's people who want them. There's an audience I already have built in. I'm going to keep creating and creating and creating. And I look at his studio. It is the
They're
largest
using
studio.
they're using his studio to make Marvel movies.
Says a lot.
Yeah, I was watching an interview with him and Kevin Hart, and it was so funny because one of the guys from Marvel was like driving up, and it said Tyler Perry Studios Way, and he was like, "The Medea guy owns this," and I thought that was gold. I was like, "Wow, like look how far he's
Mm-hmm.
coming." Like that just goes to show, like don't underestimate people, because they make a certain type of content for certain
Exactly.
type of people. Like look at him now,
Yeah.
and that studio is built on a former plantation,
Mm-hmm.
which is another layer to it. So
It's
it's
layers on top of layers on top of layers on top of layers, but it's also why it's important that you bet on yourself.
yeah, yeah. I
No
totally
one can
agree.
take it away from you. No one can take this away from you. This is yours.
Right. It's not fabricated. It wasn't forced.
Mm-mm.
His work comes from a real place.
Mm-hmm.
Your work comes from a real place. So I think, and when it comes from that place, it lasts. It
Yes.
lasts longer.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
totally agree with that. Besides Riches, what are some of your favorite television shows right now?
Oh, gosh, I love TV.
Same.
Like I'm like I can be that couch potato and watch TV all day.
That was me
Um,
with White Lotus.
what's the show I just okay, so I watch a lot of documentaries, a lot of like true crime dramas. I watch a lot of reality TV. A lot.
Okay. I
Like
didn't expect that from you. Okay.
all the Real Housewives,
The whole
all
franchise.
the whole like Real Housewives. That Janeita watches it.
Okay. Dubai, New York. Yes.
All of
Okay.
them, every single last one of them. Um, what's something the latest thing that I watched that I was really like, aside from Riches, because I don't want it to seem like fake and like I'm plugging it for no reason, but a show that I watched that I was really, really, really into. Why is it blanking on me? Why is it blanking on me? Kindred.
Kindred.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on FX, it's on Hulu. All the episodes dropped. I watched the first episode and I left being so confused that I know I need to watch the second episode because I was like, what just happened?
Oh, I love when they do that.
And I like seeing me on TV. So while I might watch all the Real Housewives, you put a Black woman on a television show, I will watch it. Reasonable Doubt, I just watched, which
I
was
heard that's really
good.
good. Yeah.
That is good, like good, good, good.
And I know
Um,
it is because Carrie's a part of it, Carrie Washington.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
it's similar to Scandal, I think, right?
Yeah, it feels like it. Like there are moments because like she has really strong walk and like she's very fashionable.
Okay.
So
That we can't forget about that white coat
uh-huh,
and the
uh-huh.
wine glasses. Yep.
Hello.
Yeah.
But I can't say I have a favorite. I literally will watch just about anything you put on. If I fall asleep, it's just because I'm tired. It's not because of the show.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So definitely got to check those shows out.
Hmm.
Were there any movies or documentaries you saw recently that you really enjoyed?
So the last movie I saw that I really enjoyed was it's gonna timestamp this and sound like everybody else, but it was Black Panther 2. That movie was amazing.
I
I
saw it
enjoyed
twice and I want to go see it again.
I want to see it again. I enjoyed all of the undertones. I enjoyed all of the hidden messages. The fact that I don't want to give nothing away. I enjoyed that movie. A
So
documentary I
good.
just watched that was really good. It's on Netflix and it's called Is That Black Enough for You?
Ooh,
And
okay.
it was good. It does a deep dive into Black media and almost like you said, like that Renaissance period, except this is talking about the Black exploitation era. So like those 70s films
Oh,
and how like Black people went from being sidekicks and like, as we know, made fun of or mocked on television. I mean, on film to being the badass. It was a really, really like insightful. Like I felt like it feels like one of those documentaries I probably would have watched in undergrad and had to write a paper on. Like it was a really good
okay.
documentary.
I
Hmm.
gotta check that out. And like that era with Pam
With Pam
Grier,
Grier. Yep.
right?
Shaft,
Yeah.
Richard Roundtree. So like they go into all of that, like all of the what was going on during the time that these films were being created. what was going on in the industry at that time, in the country at that time. Is a really interesting documentary.
I gotta check that out. You said Netflix?
Yes, yeah.
Netflix, okay. I definitely, and please go watch. Everyone go watch Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It was so good. I'm telling my cousins, I'm Jamaican and Puerto Rican. I'm telling my Latino cousins, hey, you guys are represented too. With the
Mm-hmm.
villain who isn't really a villain after you like learn his
Uh-huh. When
history,
you, yeah.
you
No,
know.
it was
And
good.
I love the way like Ryan Coogler will take a villain or presumed villain, but then it's like, oh, you understand where he's coming from, so it's more
Mm-hmm.
so like an anti-hero, and
Yeah,
like I love
yeah.
the way he and like, oh, who am I rooting for again? Like I
Exactly.
like I like how he does that.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly how I felt while I was watching. I was like, he's not really all that bad. Like he has a reason to be upset. Like,
Right, and I want to see. It makes me always after watching Marvel film, it always makes me want to like go and read the comics,
uh-huh.
and then I want to see where they take his character. Like, is there going to be a spin-off type of movie? Like,
Mm-hmm. It
because
always makes me really eager for the next one. Like, all right, so what's the next one? Whether
right,
it be
I
a
don't want to wait four
no,
years.
no, don't give me 4 years. Ryan, I hope you've been writing it during this time. I hope it's already in production because I want the next one now.
Yes, yes. Is there any last? You gave a lot, but is there any last advice you would give to young Black people wishing to break into the industry,
Um,
or anyone?
I guess the best advice that I give to young people, young Black people in particular, and breaking in this industry is to bet on yourself and also give your parents some grace when they don't understand the decisions that you're making. Um, I understand now, like looking back on the time, why my mother was so against me wanting to get a job or wanting to major in an entertainment based career. Our parents really are only looking out for what they believe is our best interest. And working in TV for a lot of us is a very foreign thing, whether you're a first generation immigrant or you're born and raised in this country. So a lot of times it's so foreign, it's so different that your parents will automatically, they're already like, no, 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 because they want you to be successful. They don't want you to struggle. And there will be struggle moments. I can't speak for, do you not struggle becoming a doctor? I don't know. But there will be moments where there will be a bit of a struggle, and just know that they mean well. Your parents mean well when they give you their advice, but you can listen to that advice. But if it's in your heart to go after this, and if you're passionate about it, do it. It will come to pass. Keep yourself open, keep your options open. Don't be so narrow minded and so set on one thing that you don't allow yourself to explore other opportunities, because you never know what will lead to the next opportunity. There's no way when I was scheduling those commercials at NBC did I think that that would have anything or have any impact on me getting the role that I actually wanted at BET 4 or 5 years later.
You can't plan that.
No, there's
You
no
know,
way to plan that. And had I, and I mean, I believe I'd still be okay. But had I said no to that job, or had I quit it because it was something because the vibes were off, because I wasn't interested in it, because it didn't feed my soul, who's to say like where I'd be now?
yeah.
And I'm not saying that that means I'd be somewhere worse than, or I might be somewhere better than, but I'm happy where I'm at right now. And I know that looking back on my career and looking over things, I kept my options open. And I also made sure to cultivate and nurture those relationships and network across. I did more networking across than I did upwards, because I knew that eventually I'll be on the upwards. Eventually I'll be up here. And I'd like to look to my left and right and see people who I've grown up with in this industry doing the same, and being able to lean back down and pull people up. So for me, networking across allowed me to work on documentaries with friends, allowed me to work on my friend Ramon Pasante's first feature film. It allowed me to do
Wow.
that because I networked across and I kept those relationships and nurtured those relationships. And it's so important that you have that. I don't want to call it a tribe. It's so important that you just have that network, that you have those people that are in your corner, that are also in your industry, because they can help you to navigate some of the pitfalls of it. some of the moments where it gets really sticky and you don't know how to adjust and you don't know how to move and you don't know what to do. But because you have other people in the industry, whether they're older than you, younger than you, more experienced, less experienced, to give you advice that makes sense because they know where you're coming from. They know what your industry is. You don't have to explain all of the details.
Right. Right. Not starting over from scratch. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I couldn't have said it better myself. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now we're gonna move on to some TCP rapid fire questions. You don't have to answer it quickly. I just call it that.
Okay. All right. I'm ready.
But the first question, what makes you laugh the most?
Comedies.
Comedies.
Wait, how rapid fire is it? Like say one word and we keep going?
Oh no, you can speak like sentences.
Oh, okay. So what makes me laugh the most? I love stand-up comedy.
Okay.
Right now, I'm upset that I'm not there now, but I really want to see Kev on stage. I just love comedy.
Oh,
So like
okay.
I laugh, like I like to laugh until I cry.
Whether it's stand up or Instagram.
Yes.
I just watched Trevor Noah's I Wish You Would on Netflix. That was really good.
Oh, I gotta check that out. I
That
gotta
was
check
really
that
good.
out.
Because he's the type of comedian where it's like it's funny, but then it's like, oh wait, that actually was really true and like right. Like it
And
makes you think.
I like dry humor where like you really gotta be like, what? And I'm just like on the floor crying, laughing. Like I love comedies.
Yeah. Oh, like Ricky Gervais.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
dry, like British.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
love that. Three things you're grateful for.
My faith, um, my upbringing, and my support system.
I like that. I like that. What would you tell your younger self?
What I tell my younger self? So much. Girl, stop stressing.
Right.
The one thing I would tell my younger self is it'll happen. It will happen. It's gonna happen. You you don't know how, but it will happen in the way that it's supposed to. And that it being everything that was outstanding that I was questioning in my younger years.
Right. That's so true. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Hmm. Honestly, I'm a Libra. It's very hard for me to think of those sort of things because I feel like it almost sounds semi unrealistic. Because I'm like, I'd like to be a multi-millionaire living in a big ass house. I'm sorry for cursing. I apologize.
Oh, no
But
worries.
in 5 years, I hope that I'm walking and living in the purpose that I'm supposed to be in and continuing to do so. I feel like I'm walking in it now, but I just want to continue walking in my purpose and doing what God has me on this planet to do.
I like that answer. That's a real. The first answer is I go to, but I like that that realistic answer. And the last rapid fire question: what would you name this current chapter of your life?
Um, Well, I am a Beyonce fan, but Renaissance makes a lot of sense for me.
Oh, love the album and love that word. Okay, yes.
Yeah, I do feel like I'm in a bit of a rebirth because I do feel like I'm a baby in essence in my career right now, given what I'm doing and how I'm learning and how I'm growing and how I'm evolving. And that's what the Renaissance was all about. It was about the rebirth and the evolving and the evolution of how things were to what they came to be. And I do feel like I'm in a renaissance right now, being in my mid 30s, being comfortable with who I am and how I show up, having money to do things that I want to do and not have to live as paycheck to paycheck as I used to have to back in the day, being student
Right.
loan debt free.
Ooh, I want that. I know I want that.
So like stuff like that would allow me to feel like I am in a rebirth right now. And I feel like everything that's happened over these past couple of years is allowing for that rebirth. So I'm just excited to see. That's why I can't tell you exactly what or where I'm going to be in 5 years, but I can tell you that I'm excited for what is to come.
And I'm excited to see what you do next, whether it's at Amazon or the next big network, which I'm sure it will probably be. I'm excited to see what's next. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I know you're very busy.
Thank you
And
for having me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
I've been wanting Janeita on the podcast since I think the spring.
Yeah,
So
it was a
um
spring, and then I lost my job, and I was like, I don't got nothing to I was like, Cervantes, you might not get, you're gonna get some bitter Betty stuff.
No, no, no. This is so good. I really appreciate it. It's such a good conversation. Where can everyone follow you?
Well, I'm on Instagram, so I can be followed at jbella0926. And I'm on Facebook, Janeita Bellamy, just my name.
Okay.
Um, that's really it. If professional wise, I'm sorry. I'm also on LinkedIn under Janeita Bellamy, so you can definitely find me there. And yeah, like that's really it. I think my email addresses are on all three of those. So
Okay.
email is best. And I like to communicate with people. I like to keep conversations open. I like to help people where I can. I genuinely do. So if people reach out and they're just trying to figure out how to navigate their career or what to do or how to, or if they just have a question, I'm open to those sort of conversations.
I love that. Awesome. Awesome. Sounds good. And be sure everyone to check out Riches and support the Amazon projects coming up.
Yes,
Um,
please.
and I want to hear from you guys. So if you're listening to this episode right now on a podcast platform, be sure to leave a rating on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you click the notification bell up top to notify whenever I upload a new episode. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you.